if that little voice in the head was like your best friend going, oh, you don't know what you're doing, how dare you.
They wouldn't be your best friend.
They wouldn't be. You just go, shut up, bitch.
Are you ready for another episode of Keeping It Real with Jac and Ral? Every Monday, they start your week off with interesting stories, personal experiences, great advice, and a plethora of ideas you can use to learn, laugh, and leverage at work. So get ready, people. It's time to take a big sip of Keeping It Real with Jac and Ral.
Hello. Another episode of Keeping It Real with Jac and Ral. We have got a good one.
Every
this week.
episode is a good one.
Yeah, I know, but this is a really good one.
It is a good one. This is
IS, starts with IS.
IBS? Do you know what IBS is?
What is IBS?
Irritable bowel syndrome.
Oh, do you have it?
Not since I've been eating kale
Oh, Jesus. There's a running theme of this kale
and
thing.
shit.
Yeah, well, that's
So
it.
what is IS? Right.
Imposter syndrome. Now, we hear a lot about imposter syndrome. We're going to could be a little bit controversial, this one, because, is it a thing? Is it a thing? Is it a real thing? Do we do it?
Doubting.
Well,
you're
no,
questioning.
I know it is a thing, but I think, anyway, it
Can
could
I
be.
define what it is?
Yes,
Can I talk
please
about it?
define.
So most people that I know are aware of imposter syndrome. So the definition is self-doubt
Yes.
or self-doubt of your intellect, of your skills, of your achievements, and have a guess what? It is often high-performing individuals that experience imposter syndrome.
Wow. So if you're suffering from imposter syndrome, chances are you're a high-performing individual.
So there you are.
Do
Job
you
done.
think
That's true.
is an imposter syndrome like if you suffer from it, you're always going to have it, like, or it's just like sometimes you might experience it. Like I know some people, again, women will often say they felt it when they came back from a career break or something. They felt it.
Yeah. I think it's something that you have had in the past or will always have, okay? And I think everybody at varying times in their life has imposter syndrome. In fact, it's been termed a behavioural health phenomenon. Can I expand on that?
Yes, you please
Dr.
do.
Jac?
So Jac's gone all serious.
I have
honest.
gone all serious because it's really important. Yeah, I coach on imposter syndrome all the time. When somebody comes to me to be coached, they fill out a questionnaire and that gives me a lot of insight into them. It makes them very thoughtful about what they want to be coached on, things that have happened in their past, barriers, etc. So it's a really great exercise to go through. In fact, a lot of people say to me, the coaching experience before you even coached me was awesome because I had to fill out your client questionnaire. And I think 7 out of 10 times, men and women, but particularly women, high-performing women, talk to me about their imposter syndrome in this questionnaire. And when we unpack it, it's really, really interesting because there is no single cause. So it's not just, it's obvious. All these people that say they've got imposter syndrome, it's because of X. It's actually a whole lot of different factors. Culture, environment, leadership, often family dynamics.
Wow.
Your role growing up in a family, what you were influenced by can all lead to imposter syndrome.
So what, like, is that just the environment, how you were raised? Like, were you encouraged or discouraged or?
Might have been a bit of that.
Yeah.
You might have been encouraged, but you watched somebody else in your family, maybe your mum, lack confidence and be discouraged. Maybe somebody in the family expected you to be a people pleaser. Oh, I'm jumping ahead because there are actual components of imposter syndrome that we should be looking at.
So there's no single cause.
There's no single cause. And there's been a lot of studies done on this, yeah?
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting. There's been a global study that says 54% of women experience imposter syndrome and 38% of men experience.
Okay. So it's not,
imposter
because again,
syndrome.
I think most people would think it's like women experience it more, which clearly they do, the research shows, but men also experience it.
Men also. Now, another study done by KPMG just recently, at any one time, 75% of female executives experience imposter syndrome. So that's a lot more than the 54% from the other study.
Yeah.
But clearly more women experience imposter syndrome. Do they, or is
Do they
it?
not? But on that, so we talked about it mainly highly successful people
High
experience. So maybe that explains why 75% of senior executive women suffer from.
Yeah,
so if it's
executives.
mainly women that suffer from it, mainly highly successful women suffer from it, you're probably going to see a bigger percentage at those very senior C-suite levels.
Good point. But the other thing is, I'm not sure men talk about imposter syndrome, whereas women do.
Yeah, and maybe that's the thing why we sort of think it's a female problem. I came across some research when we were at Harvard. Haven't mentioned Harvard for a few episodes.
Well, we're at Harvard, Ral.
I don't know. We need to up the Harvard mention. It's been several
Just in case people don't think we're intelligent.
just been several episodes since we mentioned it. That now again, we always say this: predominantly women, predominantly men, predominantly women internalize. So when something goes wrong, they internalize failure and externalize success. So if something goes wrong, typically a female will go, oh my God, what did I do? They're really hard on themselves. They beat themselves up for something that went wrong. If something goes well, they go, oh, it was a team effort. It was, right place, right time, was it? And so they externalize success and internalize failure. You know what men do?
The opposite.
The complete opposite. So again,
Those
generalizing, we know we got a lot of male listeners, just generalizing. You may not be one of them, but generally when something goes wrong, men will go, well, the resources weren't right. We didn't have the right resources. Things have changed.
Team let me down.
And when things go right, they go, yeah, that was pretty good leadership, did a good job. Now, I'm not saying that they're selfish. They might do their team.
No.
And I'm not, but
Interesting.
it's like, wouldn't it be good if we got a nice balance there?
Very
So it would be
interesting.
like when something went wrong, we could still go, okay, did I contribute to it?
that.
But don't beat ourselves up because there's
blame
probably some
ourselves.
external stuff. And when something goes right, wouldn't it be also nice to, yes, thank the team, but also take credit for it. Own it. Own your success.
So if women tend to be those that have more imposter syndrome than men, what's the opposite?
Oh, there is an opposite.
I knew there was, and I can't think
Yeah,
of it.
it's Dunning-Kruger.
Oh,
the Dunning-Kruger
Dunning-Kruger syndrome.
And so again, I feel like we're
Effect.
men bashing, but we're not.
No, we love men.
Keelan's still in the room.
We love men. We'll give you a kiss in a minute.
Steve's taken Digger for a walk.
He's
so
gone.
He's gone.
He's bolted.
He's gone. But it's the complete opposite where they overestimate
Their brilliance.
their brilliance. I think there was even a story that two robbers. You know when you put
Robbers, I love that
like
name.
lemon juice makes invisible ink, like you can do.
Yeah.
They rubbed lemon juice over their face because they thought their face would become invisible, and they robbed something. Oh, that's just stupid.
That's just, well,
But yes, so normally men
have the Dunning-Kruger effect.
are overconfident of, and perhaps not the
Their
capability.
abilities,
There's this. Okay, I don't want this to turn into a man bashing thing, but there is a saying: "Have the confidence of a mediocre white guy." Not us. We didn't say that, but
You're allowed to quote others.
I'm quoting others. I don't know where that came from.
Okay, so IS versus IBS, imposter syndrome, both give us the shits. Very important to be talking about imposter syndrome because it is a thing and it seems to be affecting more women than men. And what's really interesting, as we've just said, there is no single cause, but there is a global authority on imposter syndrome. I did a bit of research. I was fascinated. Her name is Clare Josa. She's a British woman and she's got her own website. And she says there are 4 key principles to imposter syndrome. You are likely to be a people pleaser.
Oh,
They all start with P.
the 4 Ps. Love the 4 Ps. So we did a episode around people pleasing. So they tend to be people pleasers.
Tend to be people pleasers. They tend to be perfectionists.
Yes.
We also did
we've
an
all
episode.
done, and my research has showed too that, and one of the reasons imposter syndrome affects women more than men because women tend to be perfectionists more than men, so it's all
people
tied
pleasers.
in, and people pleasers. So yes, making sense,
Number 3, paralysis,
right?
where you just can't move forward. You just can't get over something. And number 5, procrastination,
Okay,
where you put off doing something, making a decision.
it's probably tied to perfectionism too. I would imagine.
So the 4 Ps of imposter syndrome: people pleasing, perfectionism, paralysis, and procrastination.
Right. And do you see that when you coach women or coach people on this? Do you see it falling into one of those areas,
Yeah, or more than one?
yeah.
Absolutely. People pleasers often tend to be perfectionists.
Yeah.
Definitely procrastination comes into things, yeah. I'll often get somebody reach out to me and they'll say, I actually went to write an email to you 6 months ago, or I've been following you for 2 years, or I've been wanting to do this for 6 months. They actually procrastinated going forward and having the conversation. So imposter syndrome is a thing. It's definitely real. It's been termed a behavioural health phenomenon. I mean,
Although, Jack, our good friend who we mentioned last week, well, she's not a good friend. I think we'd like her if she became friends with her, Cindy Gallop.
she'd like us.
She'd like us.
Come and have a wine with
Anyway,
me, Cindy. She's not
says-
drinking. I want
She's-
her to eat kale.
I'm drinking now. It's March.
And if Cindy's coming, we're drinking.
So Cindy Gallop says there's no such thing as imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
She says it's just. In fact, I've got a quote. I
Something there.
won't bother trying to remember this, but she doesn't believe in imposter syndrome. But instead, she says there are people, especially women, who have not been valued, appreciated, and rewarded in a way they deserve. So,
I agree with that.
I'm sort of on the fence with imposter syndrome. I no doubt it happens. It's a thing, right? And you coach
It is
people on a lot.
absolutely a thing.
What I want to, and I've had a client say to me this, it's like, all these women are saying they're imposter syndrome. I'm going to challenge, is it imposter syndrome? Or just at that moment, are you lacking a bit of confidence? So, for example, you see a lot of it happening when people take on new roles. Now, of course, when you take on a new role, we've spoken about this, you're not going to, it's new, it's going to be a stretch, and there might be a lack of confidence around that. And I always go, your confidence will catch up with you as you do it in time. But I think it can be a danger of saying, I have imposter syndrome.
Sure.
When it could be, well, you're just lacking a little bit of confidence at the moment.
I don't think you're wrong, but I don't think it's as simple as that.
No.
Okay.
No,
And
I
how I'm
agree.
going to test that is you mentioned to me when I asked you, have you ever had imposter syndrome? And you told me a very good story. Let's just talk about that and we're going to come back to your confidence.
Okay, all right. I feel like I'm being coached now. I feel like I need to lie down on this couch. So you have asked me about imposter syndrome, and where it is very true for me is that I am still not comfortable with the title of an author.
That's amazing. How many books?
7 books and published, like all published, and a lot of them were bestsellers.
Correct.
But if someone, when someone goes, Gabrielle Dolan, an author, I sort of go, not really.
Okay. So let's just test it. So are you a
Okay.
confident writer?
Ooh, okay, this is turning. I like writing. I'm very good at narrating, like stories.
Are you a confident writer?
No,
Are you confident in your capabilities to write a book?
I'm confident in my editor's abilities. So, and maybe this is where it's coming from.
This is my point.
So, I failed English.
I don't think you're lacking confidence when it comes to writing a book.
No.
I don't think you're lacking confidence in being an author, but you feel like a fraud.
Right.
You don't feel that you
Yeah.
deserve the title author. There is a difference, and that's where imposter syndrome comes in. It's actually about feeling fraudulent. It's feeling like, I don't deserve this.
Yeah. They could, yeah.
And I think that is different
yes,
to
true.
lacking confidence. But they're not unrelated.
Mm.
If you want to know whether you've got imposter syndrome, go and do the quiz that is on this global authority, Clare Josa's website. We'll put the information in our show notes.
Yep.
I took the quiz.
Did you?
And it's your risk score of having imposter syndrome.
Wow. How did you go?
I had a very low risk of imposter syndrome.
Okay. So, all right.
So go and do it.
Do the quiz. I haven't done it. I'm going to do it. You've got a low risk of imposter syndrome. I am sure imposter syndrome does exist. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I don't reckon the words I've got imposter syndrome have ever come out of your mouth.
No.
So so I reckon not everyone has it. Clearly not everyone. You know, and maybe it is just that lack of confidence, and maybe it's semantics. You know, this could be semantics.
True,
Is it
but
lack of confidence or is it imposter
You
syndrome?
just mentioned something that I think is worth just double clicking on to be a wanker.
Deep dive, drill down.
Whilst you don't think you've ever heard me mention imposter syndrome in relation to me, that doesn't mean to say that I haven't had it or haven't had experiences or feelings of being fraudulent. But it comes back to women tend to talk about it more and lean into it and own it, whereas men don't.
Yeah, and you're a coach, so you would see them.
I do.
You would hear it a lot.
I hear it all the time. So I think you're right. I think it's about actually recognising that imposter syndrome is a thing. Yes, it's potentially tied to confidence, but it's more than that. It's also about feeling like a fraud.
Okay. So you've just given me
deserved.
a pretty live coaching session right there. Wasn't in the script.
You're welcome.
Can I just say that?
I'll send you my invoice after
I
the
am
show.
not paying for this. How do you coach people through it? All right.
Well, the first thing they often say is, I'm sure I've got imposter syndrome. I say, well, let's talk about that. You know, maybe you don't. Maybe you're just jumping on the old IBS bandwagon because it is bandied around a lot. So, and if it looks like, yes, they do experience imposter syndrome, well, then the first thing is, okay, so we're going to work through it. You've got it. It's not the end of the world. It's not permanent. It's not malignant. You'll be okay. So self-awareness. First of all, go and do the Clare Josa test, the quiz. The second thing, after recognising you might have it, is to say, well, okay, does this define me? No, it comes and it goes, right? Have a growth mindset. Think about the future. No, I'm not going to be defined by imposter syndrome. I recognise I might have it and I might have it at different times, but I'm going to work my way through it. I'm going to have a growth mindset.
Hey, can I tell you a good story? It's just come to mind.
Please do.
It's from Lane Beachley, who I know Lane
awesome.
quite well. She's awesome. She told me a story once.
Notice
about,
that name drop, people.
Yeah, no, name drop. Sorry, I'll just
Lane and Ral are great mates.
pick that name up off the floor. She got offered, she was at lunch and she was offered the chair of Surf Australia.
Just in case anyone doesn't know who Lane Beachley is, one of Australia's or the most successful surfer in Australia. From a
7 world champions, recently made legend of Australian sport. So, like, you know,
incredible,
amazing woman.
So she's offered this gig.
She's
chair
offered
of
chair
Australia.
of Surf Australia.
Surf Australia.
Now I don't think she'd ever been a chair on a board. Anyway, she said to me, she goes, as soon as I got offered, I just started going, oh my God, I can't do this. I'm not good at finances. I won't know that this and blah, blah, blah. And then she said, but I decided to take it. And I said to her, I go, so how long, was it days, weeks before you got offered the job and then decided to take it? And she went, oh no, I just went to the toilet. It's just like, so she literally within a few minutes
had talked herself through this.
So you talk about this growth mindset, and she just came out and go, well, there's going to have a chief finance officer.
Exactly.
And so she just said, no. So her initial thing was, I can't do this, and then quickly talked herself out of it. And I think the women that sort of like imposter syndrome, you move through it. Some people move through it a hell of a lot quicker than others.
But the fact she even had it, 7 times world champion, being asked to chair Surf Australia, very deserved.
Yeah.
But questioned whether she was deserved and whether she was a fraud or not. Incredible. That's a great story. So self-awareness, cultivating a growth mindset, building a supportive network. Get people around you that'll talk you up, that'll say, don't be silly, of course you can do this. What's worrying you? Why don't you think you can do it?
Yeah.
That story about when I was in radio and I got asked to do some producing, get behind a sound engineering desk. And I rang my dad and said, I can't do this. And he said, why? Have you tried before? And I said, no. He said, get in there, girl, and give it a go.
Give it a go. And so that's a supportive network.
Supportive network.
And
know those people.
Yeah.
Call them.
If that's coming from your dad, you've probably been raised that way as well.
Hence
which
why I
helps.
probably don't have a lot.
And I think too with the supportive network, a lot of the imposter syndrome or the lack of confidence is that little voice in your head. going, what are you doing? Who do you think you are? You failed English. Now you're calling yourself an author. Get over it. And the point is, don't listen to that little voice in the head. The little voice in the head's got no freaking idea what they're talking about. If that little voice in the head was like your best friend going, oh, you don't know what you're doing, how dare you.
They wouldn't be your best friend.
They wouldn't be. You just go, shut up, bitch. And like you would ignore them, right?
All right.
I think it was someone, sorry, I'm getting angry. I think it was
Good advice.
Amy Cuddy might have said this, but might not have. Talked about it's the backseat driver. Like if the little voice in the head is the backseat driver going, blah, blah, watch out for this, watch out. And you've almost got to go, thanks for coming, but I'm in the driver's seat.
Oh, I like that.
So, yeah. So
Polite. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. It's much politer than shut up, bitch.
There was a para-Olympian. He's an Australian guy and his name escapes me. He was absolutely awesome, came and spoke to us and he said, your body is an idiot. It'll do anything your mind tells it to do.
Love it.
So the strength of the mind, right? So be careful because, yes, it can tell you to do great things, but it can also prevent you from doing things.
Yes.
So imposter syndrome. How do we get through it? Okay, we first of all recognise we might have it, self-awareness. We then cultivate a growth mindset and say, well, okay, that's how I am today. It's not how I need to be tomorrow. We build a supportive network around us. We have great mates who say, don't be silly. Of course you can do it. Give it a crack. What's the worst that can happen? We set realistic goals, yeah?
Okay.
So Lane Beachley deserved to be the chair of Surf Australia. If somebody had said, Lane, we want you to be the chair of Equestrian Australia, she might have said, well, no, I don't know too much about horses. Set realistic goals. And the fifth is absolutely embrace imperfection.
Oh,
There's no perfect.
we have nailed that.
We are so imperfect.
We have nailed that. I mean, God, one of our favourite episodes we've done and got the most feedback was on perfectionism. We've said it before. It's an unrealistic goal. And imagine embrace imperfection.
I love that.
God.
No perfect leader.
No, real leaders aren't perfect. Perfect leaders aren't real.
There we are. See, I'm not perfect. Couldn't even get that right.
Exactly.
Don't judge me.
Well,
There you are.
I think
Imposter syndrome.
imposter syndrome.
We're calling it BS.
Yeah. Well,
Not
you know, we're
IS.
saying it's a thing.
It is a thing,
But
we're
don't be
calling.
my advice is don't be too quick to label that you've got it.
Agree.
Because it could just be a very
quiz.
floating thing of lack of confidence because it's a new job, which is all understandable, and your confidence will catch up.
Correct.
So yeah.
Should we quickly read out those 5 tips again? I think they're good
I
because
reckon
this is a deal.
self-awareness is good. Do the quiz and just see
sure.
what your risk, and it's a risk factor. It's not saying
Correct.
you've
you're
got
low
it,
risk or high
low
risk.
risk. That growth mindset,
Very
cultivate a growth
important.
mindset.
Build a supportive network.
Yeah,
Have
that's
the right people around you.
Silence out that little voice going, can't do it, idiot.
Yep.
Silence that out with people that know you better.
Absolutely.
And support you. Set realistic goals.
Very important.
So,
Very
yeah,
important.
like, you know, if I decided that I was going to be a astronaut,
That'd be scary.
I might feel like an imposter.
I'd still tell you could do it.
And
See?
the favourite, you'd be going,
say,
go,
"Go,
girl. Go.
And embrace imperfection.
Yeah.
It's okay. There's no perfect.
That's it. All right. Well, our philosophy of this podcast is embrace imperfection. So we hope you enjoyed this one. Give us a 5-star.
5-star ratings, please, because it does help us go up the charts. And if we're up the charts, we get to reach more people. And we seriously are doing this because we actually want to make a difference and help people. We get paid a lot of money to do workshops, to do coaching. This is costing nothing to listen to. We don't have any sponsors, so it's absolutely costing us our time, but we are prepared to trade off our time to help others. So 5-star rating. You don't think we're fraud, do you, at podcasts?
No.
Do you think we deserve to be here?
Yeah.
I think you're right.
We've got it.
We've got it, baby.
You know, a lot of people have said, I can't believe this is like the first one you've done because they're loving it. Anyway, loving it. Share it with your friends. The more people you share it with, the more people we can get to speak to, which is
Lucky
good.
Things.
This has been another episode of Keeping It Real with Jac and Ral, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
You've been listening to another episode of Keeping It Real with Jac and Ral. If you like what you've heard, don't forget to tell others about it and give a 5-star review. They may seem confident, but they really are sensitive 5-star needy souls. Yeah, right. Keeping It Real, created by Jack Phillips and Gabriel Dolan. Produced by Keelan Ferrari Brown. And this really real voiceover, spoken by Richard Phillips.